Welcome to Tangled and Splattered, where we are hooked on creating things. Welcome to this week's project, where we will be crocheting with the yarn that you see on the screen here. And I was inspired by the same flower that we had painted the lilies, the peach lilies, last week. I happen to have this pink and orange yarn that's really fine yarn, and I know that generally speaking, fine yarn you use for really delicate things, but ever since I crocheted that thermal stitch pot holder, I've been a little obsessed with the thermal stitch and how we might be able to use different yarns differently. So I thought I would try using this kind of fine yarn with a thermal stitch and see if it would work for something like a purse where you need there to not be a lot of gaps. So you can see here we started with chaining on the orange yarn, and then we're going to go back over and do a single stitch for that first row after the chain. And after we get through the first row with the single stitch, we're going to go through that second row after the chain, and that's where we're going to start creating the thermal stitch. So you'll see that here in a moment. And we're going to go kind of back and forth between the orange and pink. You can do whatever pattern you want. You can do as many rows of each color as you want. But with the thermal stitch, I like to think of it almost like it's a half stitch or half the length. So if you want it to be the depth of 2 rows, you really need to do 4 rows. And that's essentially what I end up doing in this pattern is I'll go back and forth with the orange for 4 rows, doing the thermal stitch, and then I'll go back and forth with the pink for 4 rows with that thermal stitch. Between the fine yarn and the thermal stitch, this project did take a lot of time. So really I was working on this for a couple of weeks leading up to this video. And if you want to create something similar, just be prepared that it will take some time and effort to create the size needed for this bag, for this purse, using a fine yarn. So here you can see we're getting to the end of the orange yarn, and we are going to switch over at the end to the pink yarn. And you can, nope, that is not what we're doing here, is it? What are we doing? I thought that's what we were doing. Hold on, let's watch this. We're going slower. We're trying to show what we're doing here. So we get, we're getting close to our last stitch, I think. Hold on, let's see. We're still going. Clearly I'm struggling with this thermal stitch. You can see why this project took me such a long time. But okay, that was the last stitch of that row, and now we're switching to the pink. Here we go. And you can see the way I switched to the pink, or what the way I really switch between colors here is that I keep the orange connected when I'm switching to pink, and I keep the pink connected when I switch to the orange. I'm not trying to have to sew in the ends each time. And I bring through both colors in that last stitch at the end of the row. So next what you'll see me do is go through and do that same thermal stitch pattern with the pink. And as I mentioned earlier, the pattern that we're doing is essentially 4 rows of thermal stitch of pink, 4 rows of orange, and just back and forth and back and forth. Generally, when I'm crocheting things, I like to make really simple patterns that are either squares or circles, or just really nice flat shapes that you can then sew together to turn into something. So in this case, with the purse that we're going to create, we're going to start with a rectangle. I will also admit that I was inspired by some other purses that I saw online that had some different patterns, different things that they did. But the way that I've created this is very similar to some of the other patterns that you can find online on other YouTube videos. So see here now that we have our rectangle of the back and forth pattern between the oranges and pinks. What I want to do is create a border that uses both colors. I want the border to have orange and pink, and we're going to do that in a single stitch. And here is some more tangles as a nod to the name of this channel. The way that we're going to do this border again is just by using both the pink and the orange. Because we were doing the thermal stitch, what I like to do here is do like a single stitch that goes through both the front loop and the back loop, but then also the front loop of the prior row. And if you want a more thorough description of how to do the thermal stitch and how I did the kind of final thermal stitch for the pot holder, you can watch that video. And this will be very similar to that, except that we are now doing a border with just a single crochet all the way around the border versus just that one row. So here you can see I'm going through both the front and back loop, and then we're going through that extra loop that was left behind from the last row thermal stitch. And you will see that I will go through and do this for each of the loops on this row. So we're just going to go through and do this for each of the stitches, just a single crochet through the front and back loop and that front loop of the last row left behind from the thermal stitch. And we are going to zoom through this to get to that corner stitch so that you can see what we do there. Zoom, zoom, we are at the end of this row. So we're going to do our last regular stitch in that kind of single stitch pattern. Then we're going to get into the corner. I always struggle a little bit with these corners on the thermal stitch. They're really tight. So I get it in there, I do a single stitch, and then you'll see I do a chain one, and then I do a single stitch in that same corner stitch. Sometimes you could do this with a chain one, or you could do it with a chain two, depending on how you want that corner stitch to look. And the next trick here is doing the chain crochet down the side. Since you don't have nice loops like you do normally on the other ends, going down the side, you just kind of have to put your hook in wherever it'll fit. Because of the way that the thermal stitch works, I try to just do two single crochets for each color switch here. So we'll do that for both of the sides. We'll repeat the corners for each of the corners, and then we have this nice rectangle that has a border for us. So with this rectangle, we are then going to fold it kind of the kitty corners up and down towards the center to create a parallelogram. And then we will fold the other kind of remaining corners in a way until it looks like a purse. So you'll see here the way that we fold this corner down towards that other corner, and it doesn't quite look like a purse, but if you see how I adjust the shape of this, you'll see how this can become a purse quite nicely. So here you can see the shape of the purse, and what I'll show you here is that what's unique about this compared to some of the inspiration purses online is that when you look in the center, you will see that it creates space for pockets, and these pockets should be about the right size to fit a cell phone in there. On another purse that I've created, it fits my phone perfectly. So it's a really nice pocket for that purpose. You can use it for whatever else you need a pocket for. And now we're going to add yellow to the border and sew it together. We did that all off camera. And adding that yellow was really based on the inspiration of that peach flower. We use a lot of yellow in the painting of that. I did not show the yellow yarn at the beginning of this because I didn't know I was going to add the yellow. And this is some leftover yarn I have. So I don't have the information of this yarn, but I do know that this is cotton yarn. And this yarn is not as fine as the orange and pink yarns used. So I'm just flipping it inside out so that you can see where we sewed together these pockets on the inside and the edges to make sure that there's no gaps for things to fall out of the purse. So now we are going to add on to this kind of yellow border here. We're going to do one more round of that before we make the strap or the handle for the purse. So here we're going to come up to a corner and we're going to do what we typically do with corners when we get to the corner. And we are just doing a single crochet here. We are not doing the thermal stitch. So now that we're at the corner, we're doing a single crochet stitch, 2 chains, and then another single crochet stitch in the same hole. And then we just keep doing the single crochets along the edge here. And then when we get down to the section at the bottom, we kind of do a reverse corner where instead of adding, we are trying to remove. So we do a partial stitch and don't pull it all the way through. Obviously, I forgot that part, so we're going to try again. We do a partial stitch, and then we do another partial through the next loop and pull that through, and then do a third one and pull it all the way through all of those, and do a single chain one, and then we do another single stitch in that same one. So that kind of creates that corner going inwards. So from here, we're just going to keep crocheting all the way around until we hit the other side. So we're going to do our single crochets. We're going to do over our corners. At the bottom, we're going to drop one. And now we are ready, after going through all of those, to create our strap. And we're looking for kind of a crossbody look with this one. If you wanted to make this more of a shoulder bag, you would just make a smaller chain than what we're showing here. But for our purposes, with the crossbody purse, this is going to be a longer chain so that it kind of fits us properly. And you'll really want to just measure this to yourself, whatever your preference is for a crossbody. Every body is different, and how it fits on you is going to be different than how it fits on somebody else. So I would suggest just holding this up as though you were to wear it, and how long you want it to be if you're going to create a purse like this. So now we have this big chain and we need to attach it to the other side. And you can see how I do that here just by pulling that loop through the other side of the height, kind of where that corner was on the other side of the bag, and then doing a single crochet kind of all the way down that other side of the bag. The point of getting that crochet all the way down the side of the bag is to really kind of create nice secure, like this chain is really attached to the purse, because it has that full side single crocheted onto it. So when we're done with that and we're done messing with all of the tangles in our yarn, we will decide to get inspired again and add a little bit of green to this. So you'll see that next. Now that we are at the end of kind of this section of bag, we're ready to switch into our green. And this isn't a perfect green. You'll see here, there's some blue, there's some green, there's some white. It's some yarn that we had from another project that we worked on. You'll actually see that purse later in this video. And we're just switching colors here. So we're gonna crochet in over the yellow so that it's sewing it in as we go. And we're gonna clip that yellow off screen. I do sometimes like to tie the two strings together to secure it a little extra well. So that's what you can see me doing here. And then we are just going to use that green and blue yarn, which is a cotton yarn, and we're going to crochet all the way up the side of this bag, and we're going to crochet through each of the loops of that chain on this side. So essentially what we're doing here is we're making another border for this purse that has a bit of a green effect, and that green again inspired by the lilies and the leaves of the lilies. And in the painting we used kind of different colors of greens in here. So here we're using the yarn that's different types of greens and blues and whites. So we're just going to go up the side, and then when we get to the chain, we're just going to do a single crochet all along the chain, and we're going to do this throughout the bag until that strap is about as thick as we want it to be. And in this case, we did 3 rounds of this in order for it to be nice and secure. You can also see that at the end we added these kind of chains so that we can use that to tie the bag together. I noticed in my other purses that there are times where I wish the bag could kind of be more secured at that intersection there. So I added those chains in order to be able to tie it. Here I'm trying to show you next that this strap was not done perfectly straight the whole way around. So when I wear it, I'll just have to keep that in mind to make sure that where it twists, that it's comfortable on my body. And now I'm just trying to show you a couple other purses that I made that are similar. Instead of the thermal stitch, this one is a single stitch. I created separate pockets that I then added later, and this one pocket is kind of 2 pockets in one. So this one is made with that same yarn that we used for the strap of the other one. And then I also have a rainbow purse that is again a single stitch and has a border. And then I later added the black and white strap because the original strap was not holding up very well. So I took off the original strap and added the black and white strap. And there you have it. There's a lot of different ways that you can make this purse. We use the thermal stitch. In the past, I've done single stitch, and you really just make it for whatever it is that you're looking to use it for. I hope you'll join us for our future videos where we will do some more painting and some more crocheting, and in an upcoming project I'll be working on, I will be showing you how I made a tote bag. So really excited to get into that with you all, and look forward to hearing your ideas about what else we can make.